And President Barack Obama, the once president, continues his shadow presidency tour, going around the world at speaking engagements for lavish fees, one presumes. He was in Japan yesterday where he said he would create maybe 1 million young Barack or Michelle Obamas so that the world would be a better place. I mean, well done, Mr. Humble. Good Lord. Sorry to disappoint him, but probably that wouldn't permit us to give up, well, to maintain your uniqueness. That would be disappointing to us all. Joining me now, former Reagan political director, Great America PAC chairman, Fox Business political analyst Ed Rollins, and Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist, New York Post, Fox Business contributor, Michael Goodwin. Great to have you both here.
Thank you.
Let's start. Can you imagine, Michael, anyone saying they wanted 1 million more people just like themselves? I mean, he threw in his wife as an afterthought, for God's sake, and a distant
to
one.
show humility. Look, it is, why not just go for cloning straight out?
Does he think the Japanese people are that stupid that he blathers that kind of nonsense in front of them?
Enough people apparently believed him to make him president twice. That he was unique. Fouad Ajami used to write that the late Fouad Ajami used to write that Barack Obama thought of himself as the American Redeemer. And so there was something...
Fouad could bring class and majesty to almost any discussion. Yes. But focusing on that president and his 8 years in office, he was being so generous beyond...
Yes. But it was Obama's view that he was something unique in history, and he was in terms of being the first non-white president, but he thinks everything he did after that was also unique and splendid, and I think that's where we part company.
Well, one thing he did is he destroyed his party. They lost governors, they lost senators, they lost House members, and got into a permanent minority.
1,000 seats.
And it took Donald Trump about 100 days to undo all the executive orders that he spent 4 years pushing through, which is the positive thing. So my sense is, I assume Mr. Obama, just like Jimmy Carter, are going to travel the world. We also heard from today. John Bolton never got a better endorsement than Jimmy Carter saying is the worst appointment of this president. That to me was a very positive thing. And I think
well, it is positive when you think the worst thing he did was bring in John Bolton. That's pretty.
Who were the good appointments?
So let's turn to the Russian decision. This president accused of being soft on Russia. Here, the largest number of diplomats and intelligence officers being shipped back to Russia at the order of this president. What do you make of it? And is this just? And is there really anything to these? Rejecting one another's diplomats and intelligence officers.
No, it's tit for tat for show. Look, I think the knock on President Trump that he never says anything bad about Putin. Well, he never says anything bad about Xi. He stopped saying bad things about Kim Jong-un. He clearly wants to improve relationships, and he sees the personal connection to be very important here. So I think that what he's doing here is restraining while showing some commitment to what happened in Great Britain.
Yeah, and how do you I think of Theresa May, the Prime Minister. She going off half-cocked and talking like the biggest dog on the block. When Putin's got 6,500 nuclear-tipped missiles ready to fire, and there's just something wrong about this. Well, if they cannot police that island, they need to be really brought up to date on what's going on in the world. And Boris Johnson, my gosh, the government is...
If the president hadn't done what he did, the whole European Union, who threw out probably half as many people as we did, would have been a totally symbolic act. This was a very important act. This saying to the Russians that you want to play hardball, we know where your people are, we know what you're doing, stop. Just stop. And we'll try and deal later, but that was very, very important to the president.
Look, our 16 intelligence agencies didn't know that they had meddled in our elections in 2016, or they would have produced evidence of it. So I'm not so sure what we know and what we don't anymore.
Right. Well, and you mentioned Great Britain. I mean, Theresa May. I mean, they have disarmed. All of the European Union has disarmed effectively. Germany buys all of its, most of its gas from Russia. So the idea that somehow they are going to stand up against Russia, when, with what?
I don't think anyone buys the fiction that Angela Merkel is going to stand up against anyone but the West. She has embraced the Islamization of Germany, surrendered her borders, and stands there, like the feckless abstraction she is.
Well, the louder message was he basically rearmed the Ohio-class submarines, which are the most powerful submarines we have.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The Ohio-class submarines, which are the most powerful, the president has rearmed the second class of, he put 10 or 12 more nuclear subs out there today that hadn't had nuclear weapons before. That's a very loud message.
Yeah, and the messages that are being sent by this administration are loud and clear. Amongst them, that his approach to President Xi and the Chinese, specifically on the issue of trade, Wall Street was just clucking as he ran on tariffs and free trade is over, and it's going to be fair trade, it's going to be reciprocal. And there's, we lost 1,400 points last week because somebody decided that at the Chamber of Commerce and Business Roundtable that it made some sense to talk the president down. Now we find out the Chinese are willing to listen to the president on this issue.
And South Korea has settled some of our claims against South Korea in exchange to be exempt from the tariffs. I mean, they've agreed to allow American car manufacturers to double.
And the European Union is gaining whatever they get based on adjusting those deficits.
Right. So,
do you have a concluding thought for us, Ed?
Concluding thought is
you want to get those Ohio submarines out there.
Well, a very loud message. I remember I grew up in a submarine town. I know what submarines can do with nuclear weapons, especially.
Yeah, and I suspect so does Vladimir Putin. I'm just not a fan of the, send the diplomats home and all of that.
Close a building somewhere. Yeah.
Something tells me they got other stuff around, whatever, as do we. Thank you so much, folks. We appreciate it.